On this model, both fan assemblies are identical. Start by removing the top one because it's easiest to do to learn the technique. Some models have two clasps at the top, some models have wing nuts, and some models have flat screws. But in any case, it's important to hinge the door down, and in some cases it's easier if you take the door off, which can easily be popped off its hinge. Remove the filters, remove the core and the filter support, filter cross brace, and the core, which gives access to the fans. And they may be held in place with a Velcro strap, as is done here, and a wing nut. There's a wing nut for the bottom one and a wing nut for the top. In all cases, there'll be a 3-wire or 4-wire Molex plug, so put your thumb on it and pull it apart, which allows you to electrically disconnect. This fan assembly then is removed. Most models with 1 wing nut. Some of the very early ones have 3, and then the fan assembly can be lifted off the wing screw and pulled out. Some models will have a clip here which you have to unlatch, but that frees the fan assembly for cleaning and oiling. The 4 tools needed as a minimum for this job would be obviously the oil, a brush to clean off the excess dirt in the inside of the fan wheel, a knife edge or a screwdriver to pop out the yellow plugs, and a long screwdriver, long piece of wire to allow us to run oil down to the innermost bearing. After it's removed, put this on the bench, flat, and very carefully turning it without providing any force on the wheel, you can clean the excessive amount of dirt that's built up on the wheel. So it's not the best tool for the job, but it will get most of it off, and even if you're 90%, that's good enough. With a damp rag, clean around the rest of it to try to get the dirt off it, especially around the inlet ring, so that you're putting it in a reasonably clean fashion. After it's clean, it's important to orient it so that the little oil plugs are facing upward. It may be yellow or orange or red, and the easiest thing that we can do to show here is just an open box. The oil plugs are easily removable either with a sharp kitchen knife or a screwdriver, and it's just as easy as opening up this little tube of Andr oil and literally dropping the oil into the bearing and counting the drops. Surprisingly, because this runs 24 hours a day, this motor will consume 4 drops per year, so in a 3-year to 5-year recommended oil interval, this will use 12 drops, or in 5 years, 20 drops in each end. It's important to realize that this motor has 2 bearings. It has one that's facing us here, and another bearing that's identical on the other end. Therefore, the little plug on the inside, which is also the same color as the outside one, it's important to remove it and do exactly the same thing. The challenge is that it is hard to get the oil there, and the easiest way we've found without having a nice oiler is to literally use a long screwdriver or a piece of wire, aim this in the general direction of that hole, and just run oil down the shaft and literally count the drops that you put in. Accept the fact that you're going to miss a bunch and just count the ones that go into the opening, and that's why the oil is captured in the rag for what you miss, so it doesn't contaminate the fan wheel, which begins to collect dust. The oil that we recommend is Andr oil. It is actually the original synthetic for which these motors were packed with. It's definitely the best for the job, and we're more than happy to mail that compliments of Eneready for any of you who have motors from the 2000 model. When that is complete, you put the plugs back in. If you haven't oiled it for many years, it wouldn't hurt to let it sit for a couple hours for that oil to fully soak in to the wick. And once it's soaked into the wick, the orientation no longer matters because it can't drain back out. It is locked into the pores of the wick. Then it's simply a matter of putting this back into both the top position or in the bottom position. either hooking it like this or with a Velcro strap and making sure it fully engages with the rectangular foam ring on the machine.